the spiritual science of words and their effect on the spirit. Words are not merely sounds. They carry vibrational energy that transcends the physical realm, influencing the spiritual world. Across religious, spiritual, and even scientific disciplines, words are understood to have creative power, the power to build or to destroy, to bless or to curse, to summon peace or to summon chaos. Long before human beings developed written language, sound itself was understood as a force capable of shaping unseen realities. The Bible states, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue." Proverbs 18 verse 21. While many other traditions, from the Hindu concept of Om as the primordial vibration of creation, to the Egyptian belief that the god Ptah spoke the world into being through his heart and tongue, to the Kabbalistic teaching that Hebrew letters themselves are spiritual building blocks, affirm the capacity of words to shape reality. This chapter explores the spiritual science of words, focusing in particular on the act of screaming and its potential to influence the presence and activity of negative entities such as demons, while also considering how vocal expression can become a channel for divine protection. The power of words in the spirit realm. Words are considered carriers of intention, shaping spiritual realities in ways that go far beyond their literal meaning. In Genesis, God speaks creation into existence, showing the creative force of words. Let there be light, and there was light. Genesis 1 verse 3. Nothing existed before the word was spoken. The utterance itself was the mechanism of creation. This establishes, from the very first chapter of Scripture, that speech is not incidental to reality, but foundational to it. Similarly, Jesus uses spoken words to cast out demons, demonstrating their authority in the spirit realm. Come out of him, Mark 1 verse 25. He does not perform elaborate rituals or invoke long incantations. A short, authoritative command is sufficient to dislodge a spiritual force from its position of influence. This suggests that the authority behind a word may matter as much as, or more than, its volume or intensity. Spiritual traditions across cultures often emphasize the alignment of spoken words with spiritual laws. Prayers, chants, and affirmations are believed to channel divine energy, while curses or harmful speech can open pathways for negative forces. In many indigenous and shamanic traditions, the spoken curse or blessing is treated as a literal transaction. Words are understood to travel, to land, and to take root in the life of the one who receives them. In Jewish mysticism, the recitation of certain psalms or names of God is believed to alter the spiritual atmosphere of a room. In West African and Caribbean spiritual traditions, the concept of speaking a thing into existence through ritual utterance is treated with the same seriousness that Western medicine treats the administration of a drug. The wrong word, spoken with intention, is considered a genuine hazard. Words act as conduits between the physical and spiritual, influencing both realms simultaneously. A word spoken in the physical world does not remain contained within it. It ripples outward, carrying with it the emotional and intentional signature of the speaker. This is why Scripture repeatedly warns against idle or careless speech, not because words are magic in a superstitious sense, but because they are understood to be genuinely creative and genuinely consequential. The unique nature of screaming. Screaming differs from normal speech in its intensity and emotional charge. It is a primal, unrefined form of expression often associated with fear, anger, or despair, a sound that bypasses the structured grammar of ordinary language and erupts directly from the nervous system. Where ordinary speech is shaped by thought, vocabulary, and social convention, a scream is often prelinguistic. It is the body's rawest attempt to externalize, an internal state that words alone cannot capture. In the context of the spirit realm, the vibrational energy of a scream is amplified, carrying unique resonance that may attract or repel spiritual entities depending on its intention and emotional foundation. Because a scream lacks the structure and discernment of chosen speech, it is, in a sense, spiritually unfiltered. It reveals the true condition of the heart in that moment, whether that condition is terror, rage, grief, or desperate faith. This is precisely what makes screaming such a potent spiritual event. It is rarely calculated, and therefore it rarely lies about what it carries.
1.
Fear and screaming as a gateway. Fear is a powerful emotion that can serve as an entry point for negative entities. When someone screams out of fear, the energy released is chaotic and intense, potentially acting as a beacon for demonic forces. This principle aligns with biblical warnings such as 2 Timothy 1:7. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. The contrast drawn in this verse is instructive. Fear is described almost as a spirit in its own right, something that can be given or withheld, something that competes directly with power, love, and a sound mind for occupancy of a person's inner life. Fear disrupts spiritual harmony, and screaming in fear can amplify this disruption, creating an environment where negative entities may thrive. It is worth noting that fear-based screaming often occurs precisely in moments when a person's spiritual defenses are already lowered, during nightmares, during sudden shock, during moments of physical danger, meaning the scream is not simply a symptom of vulnerability, but potentially a further contributor to it. The chaotic, unpatterned nature of a fear scream stands in stark contrast to the ordered, deliberate cry of faith, and it is this lack of order that many spiritual traditions associate with susceptibility to darker influence. 2. Anger and screaming as an invitation. Anger, when expressed through screaming, carries a destructive vibrational frequency. Ephesians 4 verses 26 to 27 warns, "In your anger do not sin, and do not give the devil a foothold." Fueled screams may serve as an invitation to demonic forces as they feed on chaos and discord. The raw energy of rage creates spiritual openings for manipulation and influence by negative entities. What makes anger particularly dangerous, spiritually speaking, is that it often feels righteous even when it is destructive. A person screaming in rage frequently believes themselves justified, which can make them less vigilant about the spiritual consequences oft-had expression. Unlike fear, which is usually accompanied by an awareness of vulnerability, anger often masquerades as strength, and it is precisely this false sense of strength that can leave a person spiritually exposed. The Ephesians passage does not forbid anger itself. It forbids allowing anger to fester into sin, suggesting that unchecked, screamed rage is the tipping point at which an emotional state becomes a spiritual liability. 3. Grief and screaming as lament. A third category, often overlooked, is the scream of grief, the wail of mourning, the cry torn from someone in the presence of profound loss. Unlike fear or anger, grief-driven screaming occupies a more ambiguous spiritual position. Throughout Scripture, lament is treated not as a spiritual failure, but as a legitimate, even sacred, form of communication with God. The Psalms are filled with anguished cries, and entire books, such as Lamentations, are devoted to the art of sorrowful outcry. This suggests that not all intense, chaotic-sounding vocal expression is spiritually hazardous. The difference lies in whether the grief is directed toward God as an act of trust, or turned inward and outward as an act of despair devoid of hope.